Welcome to Edison International Field. I'm Joe Buck alongside Tim McCarver, and we're in Anaheim for the game between the Anaheim Angels and the Anaheim Angels. We've got one of the better young left-handers going in this game, Tim. Of course, I mean Jared Washburn.
I don't think any pitcher in the major leagues has any more fun playing the game and pitching a game than Jared Washburn. From a small town in northern Wisconsin, the guy loves to play the game.
Thanks for that, Tim. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. I'm Joe Buck alongside Tim McCarver. And today we're at Bank One Ballpark, Phoenix, Arizona, for the game between the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Arizona Diamondbacks. Well, we've got one of the best in baseball taking the mound here. You know who I'm talking about, Tim? Randy Johnson.
Randy Johnson is the most overpowering left-hander in baseball. He throws a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, an unhittable slider, and has generally great control. On any given night, he's as good as anybody, ever, anytime, any place.
We've seen him that good a few times. Afternoon, everybody, and welcome. I'm Joe Buck alongside Tim McCarver. And today, we're at beautiful Turner Field, Atlanta, Georgia, for the game between the Atlanta Braves and the Atlanta Braves. Today's pitching matchup is between Greg Maddux and Greg Maddux. How about something on Andrew Jones, Tim? He's in the starting lineup for this one.
What a wonderful young player, Joe. He came up at a young age, but has since developed into a good defensive player, as well as a real power threat at the plate. He can be a little undisciplined at times, but remember, he's still young.
Thanks, Tim. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. I'm Joe Buck alongside Tim McCarver. And today, we're at Oriole Park in Baltimore, Maryland, for the game between the Baltimore Orioles and the Baltimore Orioles. Tell us a little about the home club here, Tim.
Well, this successful Oriole franchise grew out of one of baseball's perennial losers, the old St. Louis Browns, who moved to Baltimore in 1954. They weren't the first team in the city, however. In 1901 and 1902, Baltimore fielded a team called the Orioles, and that team moved to New York in 1903, eventually becoming, believe it or not, the New York Yankees.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Inside Pitch. I'm Joe Buck alongside Tim McCarver, and today we're in baseball's oldest venue, beautiful Fenway Park, for the game between the Boston Red Sox and the Boston Red Sox. Well, we've got one of the best in baseball taking the mound here. You know who I'm talking about, Tim? Pedro Martinez.
Well, you're right. We're going to see the best in the game. Most guys throw one or two good pitches that are called out pitches. Pedro Martinez has four, starting with his fastball. He's got a shelf full of Cy Young awards, and on most nights is pretty much untouchable.
Thanks for that, Tim. Hello, everybody. I'm Joe Buck alongside Tim McCarver. We're here at beautiful Wrigley Field in Chicago for the game between the Chicago Cubs and the Chicago Cubs. Today's pitching matchup is between Kerry Wood and Kerry Wood. Give the folks a little history lesson, Tim. Tell us about the home team in this one.
Despite what you might think, the Chicago Cubs haven't always had a reputation for futility. From 1906 to 1945, this franchise won 10 out of the 43 National League pennants and 2 World Series titles. What have you done for me lately? Well, they haven't won since 1945 and have only made 3 short postseason appearances in the past 57 years.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. I'm Joe Buck alongside Tim McCarver. And today, we're at Comiskey Park in Chicago, Illinois, for the game between the Chicago White Sox and the Chicago White Sox. Tell us a little about Maglio Ordonez, Tim.
Here's one of the best young players in baseball. This guy came up with a lot of promise, and he's fulfilled it. He hits for average and has great power.
Thanks, Tim. Give the folks a little history lesson, Tim. Tell us about the home team in this one.
This White Sox club currently has the longest championship drought in the American League and second longest overall. They last won the World Series way back in 1917, and since then have only appeared in the series twice, losing the Black Sox series of 1919 and then, of course, the Go-Go White Sox series against the Dodgers in 1959.
Thank you, Mr. McCarver. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Inside Pitch. I'm Joe Buck alongside Tim McCarver. And today we're at Great American Ballpark for the game between the Cincinnati Reds and the Cincinnati Reds. Tell us a little about Barry Larkin, Tim.
Here's one of the better, older players in the game, a potential Hall of Famer, perennial all-star who's been right around 300 for his career. Plus, he runs well, still, and can hit the ball out of the ballpark.
Thanks, Tim. Jimmy Haynes starts today on the mound, matched up with Jimmy Haynes. Welcome to the Jake, everybody. Beautiful Jacobs Field. I'm Joe Buck along with Tim McCarver, and we're in Cleveland, Ohio for the game between the Cleveland Indians and the Cleveland Indians. Today's starting pitchers are CC Sabathia and CC Sabathia. We've got one of the better young left-handers going in this game, Tim. Of course, I mean CC Sabathia.
CC Sabathia is just scary for a hitter, Joe. He's 6'7", throws a fastball in the high 90s. He'll also bust you inside with a slider and throws a little slurve away. But it's the heat and the intimidation factor that have made him a winner at such a young age.
Welcome to the Rocky Mountains, everybody. I'm Joe Buck alongside Tim McCarver, and we're here at beautiful Coors Field in Denver, Colorado for the game between the Colorado Rockies and the Colorado Rockies. Jason Jennings starts today on the mound, matched up with Jason Jennings. Wow, Tim, this crowd is electric. They are really revved up for this game.
Oh, baby, you've got to love this. I mean, you just got to love this atmosphere. It really does help the home team get pumped up.
Well said, Tim. Afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Inside Pitch. I'm Joe Buck alongside Tim McCarver, and today we're at beautiful Comerica Park for the game between the Detroit Tigers and the Detroit Tigers. Well, Tim, this big crowd is really juiced. They want to get it started right now.
It is just an electric atmosphere in this park right now, Joe. It's so much more fun when it's like this.
And nerve-wracking for some of these guys.
It's a good kind of nerve-wracking, though.
Thank you, Mr. McCarver. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. I'm Joe Buck alongside Tim McCarver, and today we're in Miami, Florida at Pro Player Stadium for the game between the Florida Marlins and the Florida Marlins. Today's pitching matchup is between A.J. Burnett and A.J. Burnett. Juan Encarnacion is in the lineup for this one, Tim.
This guy's developed into one of the better outfielders who's just beginning to put up offensive numbers. He's definitely a player to watch.
Thank you, Mr. McCarver. Tell us a little about the home club here, Tim.
The Astros entered the National League in 1962 as the Houston Colt 45s. Only after they opened their futuristic Astrodome did they change their name to the current Astros. Under either name, the franchise has yet to win a National League pennant, though it made the playoffs a number of times in the late 1990s.
Well said, Tim. Give us a little rundown on this ballpark, Tim.
Maid Park opened in the year 2000, much to the chagrin of Astros pitchers. Among its features are an incredibly short porch down the left field line. It also has a retractable roof, real grass, a very deep center field.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Kansas City. Joe Buck here, along with Tim McCarver. We're at Kauffman Stadium for the game between the Kansas City Royals and the Kansas City Royals. Today's starting pitchers are Ron Hernandez and Ron Hernandez. What about Carlos Beltran, Tim? He's in the starting lineup.
Here comes a good hitter with some power, though he's still a little undisciplined at the plate. He strikes out far too much, but that should get better.
Thanks, Tim. Give the folks a little history lesson, Tim. Tell us about the home team in this one.
When you think about it, the Royals could be considered the most successful expansion team in big league history. They had winning seasons 14 of their first 20 years in the league.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Los Angeles, California. I'm Joe Buck alongside Tim McCarver. We're here at Dodger Stadium for the game between the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Los Angeles Dodgers. Today's pitching matchup is between Hideo Nomo and Hideo Nomo. We've got Sean Green in the lineup, Tim. What about him?
Here's a big potential guy when he came up, Joe, but it took him a few years to develop. Since then, however, he's been among the better players in the game. with the bat and the glove.
Well said, Tim. Baseball fans, and welcome to Milwaukee. I'm Joe Buck alongside Tim McCarver, and we're in beautiful new Miller Park for the game between the Milwaukee Brewers and the Milwaukee Brewers. Give us a little history lesson, Professor. What about this home ball club?
This Brewers franchise arrived in Milwaukee in 1970 after a single year as the expansion Seattle Pilots. Remember them? They've since had one postseason appearance, winning the 1982 American League pennant before losing to the St. Louis Cardinals in a terrific 7-game World Series. Remember that one, Joe?
Thanks, Tim. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Inside Pitch. I'm Joe Buck alongside Tim McCarver, and today we're at the Hubert H. Humphrey Metrodome for the game between the Minnesota Twins and the Minnesota Twins. Well, we've got one of the best in baseball taking the mound here. You know who I'm talking about, Tim? Brad Radke.
Brad Radke has really developed into a #1 starter, Joe. He's got a good fastball in the low 90s, throws a terrific changeup to go with his curve and slider, but most importantly, he's got great control of all pitches.
He's won a lot of games playing on some pretty poor ball clubs. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. I'm Joe Buck alongside Tim McCarver, and today we're at Olympic Stadium for the game between the Montreal Expos and the Montreal Expos. Tell us about Vladimir Guerrero, Tim.
This guy's been a great player from day one. Think about it. He hits over 300, hits 30-plus home runs, drives in runs, great throwing arm from the outfield, and he's still a young player.
Thanks for that, Tim. Today's pitching matchup is between Javier Vasquez and Javier Vasquez. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Inside Pitch. I'm Joe Buck alongside Tim McCarver, and today we're at Shea Stadium in New York for the game between the New York Mets and the New York Mets. Well, Tim, we're going to see one of the best in the business on the mound in this game. Of course, I mean Tom Glavine.
We're going to see Tom Glavine out there today. He can still throw a good fastball, but he's more of a nibbler, living on the outside part of the plate, especially with that good, and I mean good, changeup.
Well said, Tim. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. I'm Joe Buck alongside Tim McCarver, and today we're at legendary Yankee Stadium for the game between the New York Yankees and the New York Yankees. One of baseball's best hitters is in the lineup, Tim. Tell us about Jason Giambi.
This guy's one of the strongest power hitters in baseball. Always a great eye, gets a lot of walks. When he gets his pitch, boom.
Thanks, Tim. Give us a little history lesson, Professor. What about this home ball club?
Well, Joe, they are the Yankees. What can you say? This storied franchise has won 26 World Series titles, by far the most in baseball history. And this park has been home to some of the all-time great players. They were called the team of the century.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Inside Pitch. I'm Joe Buck alongside Tim McCarver, and today we're at Network Associates Coliseum in Oakland, California for the game between the Oakland A's and the Oakland A's. Well, Tim, we're going to see one of the best in the business on the mound in this game. Of course, I mean Barry Zito.
We're going to see one of the best left-handers in the game, Joe. I'm talking about Cy Young winner Barry Zito, who at the age of 23 had already established himself as a 20-game winner and an ace-quality starter. He's got a good fastball, good control, and a terrific curveball, and he knows what to do with all of them.
Thanks for that, Tim. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. I'm Joe Buck alongside Tim McCarver, and today we're at Veterans Stadium for the game between the Philadelphia Phillies and the Philadelphia Phillies. Kevin Millwood starts today on the mound, matched up with Kevin Millwood. Give the folks a little history lesson, Tim. Tell us about the home team in this one.
Phillies' history, as I know personally, has largely been an exercise in futility. In their first 96 years of play, they won only 2 pennants and lost both World Series appearances.
Thanks for that, Tim. Jimmy Rollins at the plate. He's the leadoff hitter. Last season, he hit .245 with 11 home runs. It's time for baseball, everybody, and welcome to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm Joe Buck alongside Tim McCarver, and we're in brand new PNC Park for the game between the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Pittsburgh Pirates. Tell us a little about the home club here, Tim.
The Pirates are one of baseball's oldest franchises. They began as an American Association team back in 1882, then jumped to the Young National League in 1887. The franchise has since won 7 National League pennants and 5 World Series, the last one way back in 1979.
Well said, Tim. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. I'm Joe Buck alongside Tim McCarver, and today we're at Qualcomm Stadium for the game between the San Diego Padres and the San Diego Padres. We've got one of the better young right-handers going in this game, Tim. Of course, I mean Brian Lawrence.
Brian Lawrence has shown a lot of promise in his brief big league career. His biggest asset is his control, something you don't often see in young pitchers.
Thanks for that, Tim. Give the folks a little history lesson, Tim. Tell us about the home team in this one.
These Padres joined the National League in 1969 and had losing seasons 14 of the first 15 years before winning their first National League pennant.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. I'm Joe Buck alongside Tim McCarver, and today we're at Pacific Ballpark for the game between the San Francisco Giants and the San Francisco Giants. Well, Tim, we're going to see one of the best in the business on the mound in this game. Of course, I mean Jason Schmidt.
Joe, the wait seems to be over for Jason Schmidt. For a few years, he was a guy with great potential and only limited success, but now he seems to have finally established himself. Simply put, he throws heat, and when he can spot the 97, 98 mile per hour fastball, he's devastating. When he can't, considerable trouble.
Thanks. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. I'm Joe Buck alongside Tim McCarver, and today we're at beautiful Safeco Field for the game between the Seattle Mariners and the Seattle Mariners. Today's starting pitchers are Jamie Moyer and Jamie Moyer. Tell us something about Mike Cameron, Tim. He's in the lineup for this one.
I got to tell you, this guy's a terrific defensive player and a pretty solid hitter. Strikes out too much, but he's got great speed on the bases, and he only had 20 or so home runs a year.
Thanks for that, Tim. Ichiro will lead off. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Inside Pitch. I'm Joe Buck alongside Tim McCarver, and today we're at Busch Stadium for the game between the St. Louis Cardinals and the St. Louis Cardinals. Fernando Vina is in the lineup for this one, Tim.
This guy's developed into a pretty good leadoff type hitter the last few years. He gets on base, scores a lot of runs, and plays excellent defense. What a fun guy to watch play.
Well said, Tim. Give the folks a little history lesson, Tim. Tell us about the home team in this one.
The Cardinals, as you certainly know, Joe, are arguably the most successful franchise in National League history, with 15 pennants and a National League record 9 World Series titles. They've also had some of baseball's greatest and most colorful players, performing for some of the best.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Inside Pitch. I'm Joe Buck alongside Tim McCarver, and today we're at Tampa's Tropicana Field for the game between the Tampa Bay Devil Rays and the Tampa Bay Devil Rays. Tell us something about Damian Easley, Tim.
What a rarity this guy is, Joe. A power-hitting second baseman who'll steal 15, 20 bases a year.
Thank you, Mr. McCarver. Give the folks a little history lesson, Tim. Tell us about the home team in this one.
Not a whole lot of history here, Joe. The Devil Rays joined the American League back in 1998, winning 63 games. Not a bad total for an expansion team. However, they've kind of stayed around that number each of the years since.
Thanks for that, Tim. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. I'm Joe Buck alongside Tim McCarver, and today we're at the Ballpark in Arlington, Texas, for the game between the Texas Rangers and the Texas Rangers. Tell us a little about the home club here, Tim.
The Rangers franchise entered the league as the expansion Washington Senators back in 1961. After 11 seasons in the nation's capital, they moved to Texas, where they continued to struggle until 1996, the year they finally made their first postseason appearance. Then they made the division playoffs 3 more times in the next 4 years.
Well said, Tim. Afternoon, everybody, and welcome. I'm Joe Buck alongside Tim McCarver, and today we're at Skydome for the game between the Toronto Blue Jays and the Toronto Blue Jays. Tell us a little about Carlos Delgado, Tim.
We've got one of the best young power hitters in the game, Joe. He's a slugger who has developed into a pretty good hitter for average. He does strike out a lot, but that's part of the deal. When you get 40-plus home runs and 120-plus RBIs, you'll take the strikeouts.
Thank you, Mr. McCarver. Hitting. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. I'm Joe Buck alongside Tim McCarver. And today, we're at Comiskey Park in Chicago, Illinois for the game between the American League All-Stars and the National League All-Stars. It's a terrific all-star atmosphere for this game tonight.
Joe, you're right. Let's hope we end the night with a winner. You'll certainly recall the 2002 game in Milwaukee, ending in a tie because the managers ran out of players in extra innings. It was such an unusual night, to say the least.
Well said, Tim. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Inside Pitch for the game between the Seattle Mariners and the Oakland A's. We've got Eric Chavez in the lineup. Tim, what can you tell us about him?
Here comes one of the better young players in the game. Also good with the letter and a better hitter than a lot of people think.
Thanks, Tim. Tonight's pitching matchup is between Barry Zito and Jamie Moyer. Well, we've got one of the best in baseball taking the mound here. You know who I'm talking about, Tim. Barry Zito.
We're going to see one of the best left-handers in the game, Joe. I'm talking about Cy Young winner Barry Zito, who at the age of 23 had already established himself as a 20-game winner and an ace-quality starter. He's got a good fastball, good control, and a terrific curveball.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Inside Pitch. I'm Joe Buck alongside Tim McCarver, and tonight we're here for the game between the New York Mets and the Montreal Expos. Great matchup here in this one with these two teams, right, Tim?
We have baseball's creme de la creme. These kinds of matchups is what the game is all about. I mean, the players love it, the fans love it, and we love it. I'm not giving the edge to either of these teams. Just play the game.
I second the motion. Well, Tim, this big crowd is really juiced. They want to get it started right now.
It is just an electric atmosphere in this park right now, Joe. It's so much more fun when it's like this.
And nerve-wracking for some of these guys.
It's a good kind of nerve-wracking, though.
Thank you, Mr. McCarver. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Inside Pitch. I'm Joe Buck alongside Tim McCarver, and today we're here for the game between the New York Mets and the Montreal Expos. How about Mo Vaughn, Tim? He's in the lineup for this game.
You can strike this guy out, but if you don't, you have a problem because he's a legitimate power hitter with legitimate home run power.
Thank you, Mr. McCarver. Well, we've got one of the best in baseball taking the mound here. You know who I'm talking about, Tim. Orlando Hernandez.
Right. Orlando Hernandez, El Duque. He has a variety of pitches that he mixes in well. His fastball is good, but the way he hides it makes it even better. He also has a pretty good curveball, good slider, but most importantly, a great idea on how to pitch.
Thanks, Tim.